Imagine a world where books didn't exist. No Harry Potter, no Sherlock Holmes, no stories to transport you to magical lands or solve thrilling mysteries. This was the reality before the invention of printing. But then in the 11th century, a man named Sheng in China changed everything. He invented movable type, a method that would revolutionize how books were made and how knowledge was shared. This is the story of how printing evolved, from the early experiments in China to the achievements in Korea and Japan, and finally to the groundbreaking work of Johann Gutenberg in Europe. During the Qing Lai period 1041-1048, Sheng, a commoner, had a brilliant idea. He took sticky clay and cut it into tiny characters, each as thin as the edge of a copper coin. Each character was a single piece of type. He baked them in a fire to harden them. Then he prepared an iron plate and covered it with a mixture of pine resin, wax, and paper ashes. To print, he placed an iron frame on the iron plate and filled it with the clay characters, arranging them closely together. When the frame was full, he heated it near a fire to slightly melt the mixture, making the characters stick together. He then pressed a smooth board over the surface to make it as flat as a whetstone. This method was slow for printing just a few copies, but for hundreds or thousands it was incredibly fast. Sheng's invention was a game-changer, but it had its limitations. 3 centuries later, during the Mongol dynasty, the Chinese tried casting characters in tin instead of clay. However, they found it more efficient to carve characters on large blocks of wood, cut them into smaller pieces, and then print from these blocks. The Chinese language, with its vast number of characters, required more than 30,000 different types. Storing and retrieving these characters was a huge challenge. Printers used revolving tables, each about 7 feet in diameter, with a round bamboo frame divided into compartments to organize the characters. Despite these innovations, the process remained laborious. In contrast, Korea faced different challenges and opportunities. Korea's peninsular location allowed it to maintain cultural independence during the Mongol Empire. By the 8th century, Korea had already developed wooden block printing. The Koryo dynasty set up a printing office in the National College by the early 12th century. They focused on collecting and standardizing Buddhist texts, producing a Korean edition of the Tripitaka, 1235-151. This edition was later sent to the Mongol emperors. As printing grew in Korea, the scarcity of suitable wood for printing blocks became a problem. Korea was rich in pine forests for making ink, but lacked the hard, close-grained woods needed for blocks. They decided to try metal. They adapted the molds used for casting coins to create a new device for casting type. They carved a character in boxwood and pressed it onto a trough filled with clay to leave an impression. Melted bronze was then poured into the mold, creating a flat piece of metal type about the size and thickness of a small coin. By the mid-13th century, this became the standard for printing in Korea. However, using metal type presented new challenges. How could the type be held firmly and smoothly while printing? Melted wax and bamboo strips were tried, but didn't work well. Despite these issues, Koreans managed to print several hundred copies of many books. The key breakthrough came with the development of a new alphabet. King Sejong the Great 1419-1450 commissioned scholars to create an alphabet for the Korean people. In 1446, they introduced Hangul, a phonetic alphabet of 25 letters. If Korean scholars and printers had embraced this alphabet, the future of printing and culture might have been very different. Instead, they clung to Chinese characters, making printing as complex as ever. The bureaucratic regulations for printing were strict. Mistakes were punished severely, ensuring the accuracy of early Korean prints, but making it difficult to recruit printers. The focus on authenticity meant that typographic printing was limited to official texts, while popular literature circulated in manuscript form. In Japan, movable type arrived from 2 sources. The first was the Jesuit mission press, established by Portuguese missionaries in the 16th century. They brought a printing press and European printers to Japan. The Jesuits printed Christian texts and other works, including Japanese classics, Chinese maxims, and dictionaries. However, the use of Romanized Japanese limited the audience, and the press was eventually moved to Macau due to persecution. The second source was the Korean invasion of Japan in 1592. Japanese soldiers brought back Korean movable type, which the emperor ordered to be used for printing Chinese classics. The founder of the Tokugawa shogunate, Ieyasu, became an enthusiastic supporter of printing and commissioned thousands of pieces of wooden movable type. Buddhist temples in Kyoto and other cities produced sacred texts and commentaries using movable type. Commercial printing flourished in the new capital of Edo. Rich physicians supported the publication of medical texts, and popular classics like the Ise Monogatari were printed in numerous editions. Artists and calligraphers created beautiful books, and authors began writing for publication. However, by the mid-17th century, the technique of movable type was abandoned in favor of traditional woodblock printing. It was cheaper and more convenient for the Japanese language, which had a vast number of characters. In Europe, the story of printing took a different turn. Johann Gutenberg, a goldsmith from Mainz, Germany, saw the potential for a new way of printing. He realized that printing a whole page could be broken down into printing individual letters. By making multiple copies of each letter, they could be reused as needed. Gutenberg's crucial invention was a mold for casting precisely similar pieces of type. This allowed for interchangeable type, making the printing press a powerful tool. Gutenberg's skills as a goldsmith were crucial. He understood that each cast letter had to be the same height to ensure a uniform surface when printed. He redesigned the Roman alphabet, imagining each letter as a tiny stick that could be held and arranged. His mold for casting type was a machine tool, a tool for making the machines that did the printing. Gutenberg's first major work was the Gutenberg Bible, a masterpiece of early printing. His invention marked the beginning of a new era where machines could do the work of scribes, and knowledge could be disseminated widely. The Roman alphabet, with its small number of characters, was well suited to the opportunities of interchangeable type. By contrast, the Chinese script, with its countless ideograms, was not as well suited. The impact of Gutenberg's invention was profound. It led to the spread of knowledge, the rise of the printing industry, and the democratization of information. Books became more accessible, and literacy rates increased. The printing press played a crucial role in the Renaissance, the Reformation, and the scientific revolution. In conclusion, the invention of printing was a monumental achievement that transformed the world. From Sheng's clay characters in China to Gutenberg's movable type in Europe, the story of printing is a testament to human ingenuity and the power of innovation. The challenges and innovations in Korea and Japan show that the path to modern printing was not straightforward. Despite the early experiments, it was the combination of the Roman alphabet and Gutenberg's mold that made movable type a practical and powerful tool. Today, we take for granted the ease with which we can access and share information, but it all started with the groundbreaking work of these early pioneers.